Exaggerator, and Kent Azormer with the 16th pole from Nyquist. Exaggerator in the Preakness turns the tables on Nyquist, who's trying to hang on the second, maybe cherry wine there, and they're following.
Bobby Shoemaker, Andrew Calvano. It's Tournament Talk on the Tournament Edge, Belmont Stakes Day Edition. 4 races, all at beautiful Belmont Park. We're going to start in race 8 and end things in race 11 for the big one. So Andrew, let's not waste any time. It is race 8 on the card. It's the Grade 1 Longines Just the Game. It is 1 mile on the turf. For 4-year-olds and up, it's fillies and mares, and a purse of $750,000. A field of 13, and Miss McDougal, the 7-horse, is your 4-to-1 morning line favorite. I guess, Andrew, we really can't say much wrong about this horse. Second off the layoff, looked impressive at Aqueduct on April 16th. He gets the hottest jockey in the country to ride him. Do you believe that this horse is the one to beat?
I don't think he's the one to beat here, and I think that's hard to say with so many horses lined up in this race. You have to respect the connections of Jose Ortiz and Chad Brown and what he's been doing. But I think there are plenty of opportunities to beat this horse, especially at some big prices here. This race is going to kick off the Big Pick 4 sequence that should reach over $1.5 million with ease. So with that being said, I think there's ample opportunities to go and find a price. With that being said, Bob, I landed on number 3, Tapestry, 15-1 for Sugar McGahee and Florent Giroux. We talked about this horse on the May 14th edition of Tournament Talk, and this horse was 8-1 in the morning line. Liked him as my top play of the day. Going a mile 16th that day. If that race was a mile like it is today, that horse wins. Caught in the last 16th of a mile there by a very good horse in Strike Charm, who draws the rail today. Had a bumpy start there, kind of put him back, but put him in a good position to rate. I think we're going to expect something very similar to that today. Has the ability to show some more speed, but with some horses that I know I'm going to go to the front end here, I feel more comfortable. Florent Giroux just sitting a little bit back. So if we can rate here, that should be a good thing, and I think there's an ample opportunities here to get a big price, and I think this is one of them that needs to be respected.
Andrew on the 3-horse Tapestry at 15-1 morning line. Ton of questions for you about this race. The first one, and it's most important to me, and you'll find out why here in a few moments. Pace of this race. Who do you see going to the front end? How many horses do you see going to the front end? And how fast do you think that these horses are going to go early?
There's going to be a lot of speed up front. I don't think we're going to see too crazy of fractions, but I think we are definitely going to see a bunch of horses duking it out. I don't think we're going to see anything like a speed duel here where 2 horses just kill themselves on the front end. I mean, this is a big race. The jockeys are going to know, if they need to hold back, they will, rather than, tire the horses early in this race. With that being said, I saw number 4, La Burma. That's a big price there. That horse showed a lot of speed in the Grade 2 at Santa Anita before just weakening there late. But the 9th place effort, not as bad as it looks in that big 14-horse field. Number 5, Miss Sophia, definitely going to show some speed, as well as number 8, if I'm pronouncing it right, Celestine for Belmont.
We get the horses with the crazy names every week, don't we?
Of course. He's going to show some speed as well. And Lexi Liu, I don't think necessarily front-end speed, but is going to show a little bit of early speed, but should eventually sit back. That's who I see on the front end of this race here, Bob.
You mentioned a horse that I wanted to ask you about, and it's the 5, My Miss Sophia. I went to the well with this horse on numerous occasions last summer at Saratoga, felt good in doing so, and she never lived up to my expectations. Yeah. I didn't think she had an excuse, albeit off of a layoff last time out, Andrew. She had it her way on the front end, and she still couldn't seal the deal. To me, this is a horse that doesn't like to win. I think she's going to take money. Time Form's a big fan of her. It's Bill Mott, Mike Smith, second off the layoff. What are your thoughts on this horse overall?
I agree, and I think the horse is definitely beatable. I know the horse is going to get bet down, especially with the addition of Mike Smith shipping in. It's Belmont second off the layoff, who granted hasn't started off pretty hot here on the New York circuit, but he always gets respect on big days like this. Like I said, Bob, that last race on May 14th, granted, it was off the layoff there. I thought the horse was very beatable that day, but when that horse got out, I'll tell you what, I was a little bit afraid, and I did have Tapestry that day as well. But like you said, Bob, you nailed it right on the head. I think this horse just doesn't like to win. So anything like last outing, I think the horse can definitely be caught if this one's going to be the lone speed, which she shouldn't, but should this one shake away, definitely think has the opportunity to get run down.
Chad Brown's got two runners in here, one of which we talked about, Miss McDoodle, the 7 horse, which is your favorite. The other horse is the 12 with Javier Castellano aboard. Your thoughts on this horse's effort last time out, and what type of performance are you seeing from this horse in this specific race?
Yeah, I was a little fearful of the 12. Not even going to try to pronounce the name, Bobby, but this one finished second to Tepin off a pretty decent layoff, and that was off the trainer switch horse previously in the Grand Motion Barn. This is the Chad Brown horse that I think, is going to come late. It's tough from that 12 post. He's got to weave out of a lot of traffic. If there was one guy to do it, however, it would be Javier Castellano. I don't think this is a horse necessarily that should be thrown off horizontal tickets because you don't want to get boned by a Chad Brown and Javier Castellano. But another horse that really hasn't shown the ability to win, hasn't won in the last 2 years. So unless the trainer change is really going to be the big difference for this horse, I just don't see him coming from as far back as he is. She is, I'm sorry.
I found it very interesting and almost shocking that Chad Brown's got 2 horses entered in a stakes race of this caliber on the turf, and Irad Ortiz is not on either one of them. Yep. He lands on a horse that you just don't have a lot of information about, and that's Irish Rookie. Third off of a layoff, but here's the kicker. It's 2 races overseas. This horse just run 21 days ago in Ireland and now is shipping here to this race. Pedigree's there. Thoughts on this horse with Irad aboard?
Thought that was a very bold move, Bob. Like you said, 21 days ago, coming in here on the ship. You got to respect when Irad takes that mount. You got to think there's something there. Especially the way I'm looking at it is, if Chad said, "Here's one of the horses you're going to take," he takes him. I don't think he takes him from this the Euro trainer here unless this horse really has something. So maybe that's the case. With not too much information, I'm going to try to beat the horse, but I don't know. We got to see how that horse gets bet and maybe not leave off the ticket.
Yeah, I would suggest to the viewers out there, if you need a price, I think you're going to get an overlay on this horse when it comes to tournament play. And I think if you can afford to put this horse in your pick 4 or any of your exotics, I think it's worth it just because of the unknown and the fact that either Chad didn't want Irad on his horses, which I find hard to believe, or Irad elected to get on this horse. But nevertheless, Andrew, I went with a bomb here in race 1 of Tournament Talk tonight, and that is a horse that you mentioned that you said would be on the front end, and that is the 4-horse La Burma at 30-1 morning line. A lot of reasons I like this horse. This horse, first time in the U.S. was May 5th off of a 214-day layoff, did a lot of the dirty work early with Smooth It back on May 5th, as I mentioned, at Santa Anita. They went 22 and change, 47 and change, and when this horse turned for home, Andrew, he was in the lead. Albeit, wasn't that long that he was in the lead, but he was in the lead. So here's my mindset. For a horse to go that fast for that long against some pretty good horses in a Grade 2 stakes race at Santa Anita, first time in the United States, first time since 214 days since its last race, I expect a better effort, second time off the layoff, as we always talked about. I don't think James Cassidy would ship this horse from Santa Anita to Belmont Park and put this horse in a Grade 1 stakes race if he didn't think this horse had a chance. And here's what did it for me. I mentioned to you the fractions, 22 and change, 47 and change. I look at these other horses and the fastest that they run, they don't come close to that. Yeah. So my point is, if Victor, who I will admit is a jockey downgrade from Raphael to Victor, if he can get this horse to settle and slow things down, and maybe go 48 and change, and then turn for home, and he's on the front end by himself, I think I got a big chance here to nail a big price, not only through the window, But in my tournament plays, I think horses of this nature in races like this on this surface are dangerous. And whether you like this horse or not, Andrew, this horse should not be 30-1. I'm going to roll with the 4 horse at a monster price in our first race.
I agree with you, Bob. I think you're getting that big price, off that effort that doesn't seem, too good on paper as it does on video. Like you said, you're getting Victor Espinosa, so that's why we're going to see a high price. But like you said, Bob, the point you mentioned, this Belmont turf course is not a turf course where you can let any opponent just walk the dog on the front end. And if that's the case, if this horse is quicker than the others because their times aren't matching up, that could be a problem for a bunch of the horses here in the group. Looking at that race, you got Nancy from Nairobi coming out of that race. That horse is a very strong monster there at Santa Anita. I believe undefeated. I know ran last weekend, I believe. I forget the outcome here on the spot, but I know this horse is very strong.
Very successful.
Yeah, Fantacola, another strong cow horse out there. So, I mean, Bob, 30-1 on a horse, like you said, did all the dirty work. I mean, go ahead. Without a doubt, 30-1 would be a monster score to start.
And the bottom line is that if you get these same fractions that we saw last time out, I can just rip up my tickets. But when I looked at this in detail after watching the race twice, I started looking at these other horses, and I've got ultra respect for Miss McDougal. I mean, unbelievably impressive visually, but again, coming from way off of it. Maybe I'm completely wrong, Andrew. Maybe there's going to be more speed. Maybe the 6 is going to go. I think Prize Exhibit may try to go, but I just don't think the 6 is as fast as the 4. And if this 4 can get out there, as I mentioned, and establish the lead in the first quarter of a mile and slow things down that second quarter, this horse has a big shot because it ran better than 6.5 lengths off the lead in a 9th place finish.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Bob. Like you said, all the points you're making are very solid. And to get 30-1 to top it off, Bob, if you're right, that makes you look excellent. A horse I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned Prize Exhibit. I thought 30-1 was kind of shocking on this horse. Now, I know this horse is kind of lingering out of form here. I understand that. But now you get Flavion Pratt, a top 5 turf jockey. This is a multiple Grade 2 winner. I understand the horse may not win this race, most likely won't win the race. But 30-1, what do you think about that, Bob?
Andrew, I would not. This field is so competitive as this entire day is. It's an unbelievable card. It's one of the best I've ever read. I wouldn't be surprised if any horse in this race wins. Yeah. And Prize Exhibit is one of those. I think he's ran some races in the past that if he doesn't put him in the winner's circle, could certainly put him in the top 3 before it's all said and done. And you made a great point about Pratt. He's one of the best turf jockeys in the United States of America. He's not going to get on horses for fun. He clearly thinks this horse has a chance to run well. Whether it's good enough to beat the rest of these horses, that's yet to be seen. But 30-1, Andrew, you're spot on. No way should this horse be 30-1. No way should the 4 be 30-1. But that should give you an idea of how competitive and how great this race really is.
Exactly. You're landing on 30-1 shots. I'm on a 15-1 shot myself. So let's go out there and let's catch a big price here.
So lastly, just wanted to pick your brain a little bit more about Tapestry. I know you were very complimentary of the first 2 races it ran before, after the layoff, I really liked that April 9th effort. Wasn't as pleased with the effort last time out. I think that had a lot to do with having trouble early. Do you see this horse setting second flight if the 4 doesn't set some blistering speed, or do you think the 3 is going to have to come from way off of it to win this race?
Not necessarily. I mean, the 3 likes to be on the front end, but I think, Florent Giroux is going to realize, there's a little more speed that we can, rather close in on rather than duke it out with on the front end. So I see this horse 2 or 3 lengths behind, if at the very most, and that's where the horse is going to close from, in my opinion.
So in race 8, Andrew is on the 3 horse Tapestry at 15-1, and I'm on the 4 horse La Burma at 30-1. So let's move on to race 9 on the card. And no big deal here, Andrew. We go to another Grade 1, and it's arguably one of the most famous dirt races in the entire world. It's the Mohegan Sun Metropolitan Handicap. For 3-year-olds and up, 1 mile on the dirt, a purse of $1.25 million, a field of 13. And this horse is familiar to all of us, Frosted. The 5 is your 7-2 morning line favorite. I think he's the horse to beat. He certainly has a track record that says he's a horse to beat. I think the question is, Andrew, coming back from Maidan, and I'm not sure the mile hits him between the eyes, but nonetheless, in your opinion, is Frosted much the horse to beat?
I think so, Bob. And to be honest, this is where I'm going to take my stand in the pick 4. I'm going to single Frosted. Really wouldn't do that in this big of a field if I really didn't feel that confident, but I'm hearing a lot of great information on this horse, how he's working out in the morning, the way he came back from Dubai. And Bob, we talk about often on the show, I will never take a horse coming back from Dubai, at a short price. I feel like they're always going to need a horse. From what I'm hearing on my end, the horse is ready to rock and roll. And if that's the case, then in this big pick 4 sequence here, this is where I'm just going to take my stand. I'm hope the information I'm seeing right. We look back at this horse last year. This horse doesn't run into American Pharoah. This horse doesn't run into horses, Texas Red. This horse could add a couple more wins to his resume. And I think, it was best said when Keir McLaughlin said last year, we ran into the wrong year to run for the Triple Crown. I think that's absolutely right. So the horse is going to be up front, not a speed horse, but, sitting right off. I think he's going to be in the perfect spot to close. Joel Rosario, one of his best jockeys who's ridden him so far, is back aboard. And hopefully, all things are a go for number 5 for Austin.
Andrew, I had this horse way off the pace. I mean, I've got him, second or third to last, in my opinion. And I just think he's going to be too short of a price coming from Maidan and closing and having to pass a lot of good horses. And I have ultra respect for Frosted. You nailed it on the head. He is much better than what his resume states. He ran the race of his life at Belmont Park a year ago, basically to the day. And if he faces anybody else but one of the greatest horses we've ever seen, he has a Triple Crown win under his belt. But I just can't take a horse at that short of a price from what I feel like is going to have to pass a lot of horses. And if I'm right and he turns into a closer, we talk about this all the time on the show as well. Closers accidentally find trouble all the time. It's whether they're blocked or whether they get wide and they're much the best, but they run second or third because they went 47 feet wider than a horse that they're better than when that horse was drawing the rail and saving all the ground. Mm-hmm. I couldn't go there. I have ultra respect for Noble Bird. I think he's run races, Andrew, that are good enough to win here, but he's turned into such a head case if he doesn't get the lead, and I don't think he's going to get the lead here, that I couldn't trust him. El Kabir, Andrew, just seems like time has passed him. He had his moment. I can't land on him. I wanted to ask you about Stanford before I gave you my thoughts on the horse. Do you think this horse is in his best shape of his career, running his best races right now? Do you give him a shot to win this race if it's not Frosted?
I think this horse has been in best form since last spring. He only has 2 wins, but he's finishing second, by a head to Blowfield in the Goshen Park Handicap, which you really watched that race. Stanford should have won that race. He's losing by a neck to International Star in Louisiana Derby. The only bump race he had was finishing 5th in the Curlin or Restricted Stakes at Saratoga, where he just didn't run his race, but it's first or second ever since then. I think this horse is a great horse. He showed that in the Charlestown Classic last time out. I think if this horse gets to the lead, it's going to save trouble for a lot of other horses. I think he's one of the quickest here. He's definitely going to be a dangerous one. This cold out of Malibu Moon, Todd Pletcher, very high on this horse. So, in my opinion, if the way I see it is, Frosted's my pick. There's only 2 or 3 horses I can really see beating Frosted, and Stanford is one of them.
I don't like Stanford here, Andrew. I don't think he's as good as what he's being given credit for. I got to throw out the race at Charlestown for a plethora of reasons. First and foremost, it's the bull ring. Some horses like it. Some horses can't stand it. Yep. I just don't think he's good enough here to beat these horses. And quite frankly, I don't think he's fast enough to get to the lead. I do know of a horse that's going to be on the lead. And he might not be there by himself, but he's going to be on the lead. And this is going to be my top selection. And it's the other Keir McLaughlin horse. And it's Marking, the 13 horse. Now, I know that there is a lot of holes that you can find about this horse, and you don't have to dig very deep to find it. First and foremost, he's a head case. He doesn't like people. He acts up at the gate. He falls down at the gate, throws his jockey off. But if you look past the 3 races at Maidan, Well, I guess 2 of them because he won one of the races at Maidan. This horse looks like a potential freak show. And you and I both talked about this horse on the cell phone today before the show, and you were in agreement that he looked very good. This horse has 3 races on the dirt in America. He broke his maiden September 23rd at Belmont Park going 6.5. He got a 105 time form US speed figure, first race of his career. He won by 2 3/4 lengths. He was wrapped up in doing so, Andrew. He won it in the easiest ways at 4 to 5. Here's the race I'm betting this horse off of. The next race, November 4th at Aqueduct, going this distance. He gets a 122 time form US speed figure. He went 4 wide in doing so and won by 5.5. And you can probably attest to this as well. He could have won by 6 or 7 lengths if they wanted him to. He then goes to the 7 furlong race at Santa Anita and does everything but win and loses to, Run Happy. He's done everything right in America. I'm willing to gamble that he just didn't like Maidan. And by the way, if Karen didn't think he was good, he wouldn't have sent him over there to begin with. Again, I think this horse is going to be on the front end. I'm not sure if he's going to be there by himself, but I'm going to make Frosted come get me. If marking is the old marking, he's going to be a handful down the stretch.
And I agree with you, Bob. Looking into this race, for me, it was between Frosted or marking. One of the things that threw me off a little bit, I was going to ask you about, Bob.
Sure.
The 13 posts, getting to the front end, does that scare you at all?
Yeah, of course, it does. Again, in my opinion, I think he's so much faster than most of these horses early that I thought he could get past most of them in that first quarter of a mile before they go into that one and only turn, that he might not lose as much ground as it initially seems looking at it before diving into the fractions that these other horses are running. Of course it's a concern. Of course it's a reach because I'm asking this horse to completely revert back mentally, but I know the talent is there, Andrew. And if he breaks well, he's going to be on the front end, and he's going to force these other horses to come get him. And they may. But 8 to 1, I think it's going to be an overlay for all the reasons I just gave you. I'll roll the dice with marking in my tournaments, and there's no way I'm leading this horse off my pick 4.
I agree with you, Bob. And like you said, when we spoke earlier, that November 4th race, I singled that horse in my pick 4 that day. And what a monster horse. Didn't even have to say anything to the horse. Didn't even have to watch the TV. That horse was going away, in hand, like you said. Then runs in the Grade 1 Malibu, ships across the country. Runs into Run Happy, and Lord Nelson was right behind him, who ran a very bang-up race a week back. So the horse has done, like you said, Bob, everything he can do on U.S. soil. And maybe he just didn't like, Maidan. And maybe, some horses do, some horses don't.
I have a question for you, Andrew, about marking. I don't want to spend so much time on this horse. Even though it's my pick, I would have talked about this horse a lot either way because I find it to be very intriguing. This horse, borderline superstar stuff, and then goes to Maidan and just completely underachieves, whether it was falling at the gate or losing by 9 1/4 lengths in a $1 million 1 mile race in Maidan, which I'm not sure what his odds were, but I feel like he took a lot of money that day. What do you think went wrong with this horse after the good effort the day after Christmas at Santa Anita?
Yeah, who knows? I think some horses, I'm not an expert on the shipping to the Maidan part, but I would just imagine, the change of scenery, the flight patterns, you're messing with the horse's, clock, and I don't know, maybe, it's a lot of stuff. Horses just don't like it over there, and I think the ship has a big part to do with that.
Fair enough. Another horse I wanted to ask you about, and it's a horse that I've wanted to like for so long, and I know a couple of my friends who are watching this show right now give me a hard time about Don Worth all the time. I have picked this horse in 3 consecutive races. He's lost all 3. He's looked bad in some of them. I can't leave this horse off my exotics either because the day I do it is the day he'll beat me.
Exactly.
Your thoughts on Don Worth? I think another horse that has got so much talent, it just doesn't show on the past performances.
Yeah, and ever since he left the Motion Barn and went out west with Doug O'Neill, seems like he really lost some track there. Like you said, that Charlestown Classic race, Bob, I'm not going to lie, Charlestown is a quirky race. I know it worked out for Stanford, but maybe it didn't work out for Donworth, whatever. Tossed the race. Not a big run to San Antonio handicap. The 20 to 1, I think it's a severe overlay for the connections especially. But I just don't. I think this horse is up against it today. I see the speed, pretty decent here. And if that horse is going to go out to the front end, like I think, he's got to, it just makes trouble for himself.
Fair enough, Andrew. So give us your top selection again.
So I'm on number 5, Frosted, 7-2.
And I'm on the other McLaughlin horse, the 8-horse marking, the 13-horse marking at 8-1 morning line, but I certainly expect an overlay. Now we'll go to race 10 on the card. It's another great one. It's the Woodford Reserve. It's 1.25 miles on the turf. It's a $1 million race for 4-year-olds and up. Some of you may know it as the Manhattan. It's the field of 11. Flintshire, the 10-horse, your 8-5 morning line favorite. I will just say this for both of us. Flintshire is much the horse to beat.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Bob. And I think, like you said, Bob, we talked about this earlier in the week. This horse could be one of the best in the world. So let's see what he does on U.S. ground. Very eager to see how he does. And I think the horse is much the horse to beat. I think his best horse as of late was the Prix d'Arc in France. Finishes 2 lengths off Golden Horn, but Golden Horn, what? He did a lot, that year. So I think it just goes to show. But he ran a very bang-up race, and he comes to Saratoga last summer and he wins the Sword Dancer. So I think 100% the horse to beat. In my opinion, now going forward with the pick 4 here, I got my single down. So I'm going to add a couple more horses to the ticket. And Flintshire is going to be my second pick in this race. Just kind of hoping that the layoff doesn't really work to his advantage. Although, like I said, he is the horse to beat. But I will try to find a bigger price here. And that's going to be with number 1, World Approval. 12-1, put on the rail. I was on this horse in the Turf Classic last time out, Derby weekend for Tournament Talk. Horse turns for home. Looks like it's his race to win easily. Gets beat by a neck by Diversido, who is also in this race. I thought out of the 2 horses, World Approval actually ran the much better race. He just kind of, didn't get the bob down, whatever. Like the sight of the horse right beside him, whatever it may be. I thought the horse was in top form going into that race. And I don't think it takes too much out of him. I actually think the rail helps him today as opposed to being far outside like he was last time. I think he can really show some more speed. And if somebody wants to go in front of him, he'll tuck right there on the rail, not get stuck behind anybody. But I think this is the horse that is the main threat to Flintshire.
You took the words out of my mouth. I read the race the same exact way, but I would like to flatter Flintshire here for a second, Andrew, because this horse is special, and I don't think that we've had a turf horse other than Wise Dan that has run in America full-time that is going to do things the way Flintshire is going to do them in 2016. Yep. If he reverts back to his form in 2015, I would argue to you that he's the best horse in the world. Dirt or turf, he's the best horse in the world. And I looked at that race again at Saratoga that you mentioned just for fun, and that was an unbelievable performance. Another one of those situations where he could have won by a lot more, but really wasn't asked. He was handridden around the racetrack. He is just very, very, very impressive. This is where I'm going to single because I'm going deep in other legs because I don't have as strong of an opinion, especially the race we just talked about. And this is the most logical and obvious single. If he is the Flintshire of old, he will crush this field. But in my tournaments, depending on where I'm at, if I feel like I need a longer price to get in position, I'm going to go with the 1-horse World Approval as well. Out of all the races run by all the horses in this field, the closest effort to Flintshire's effort at Saratoga, which is where you get the most data, because you don't get a lot of data as far as what he's doing in Longines and Shaw 10. But the 1-horse's last race is the closest or the second fastest in this race behind Flintshire. So what if Flintshire isn't ready to fire off the layoff, which is hard to believe considering Chad Brown is his trainer. But what if that's the case? You want to see a horse in form at this time? World Approval is as good as he's ever been. And if the 10-horse is not where he needs to be yet, I think he gets beat by the 1. So I see what you're saying. If I had a stronger opinion in the Met, I would go too deep here, but you got to single somewhere. World Approval's got a big shot if Flintshire is on his B game. But if he's on his B plus or A game, everyone's running for second.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think it really comes down to these 2 horses. And Bob, hit it on the head. If you're double-digit dollars away and you kind of got to make a move tournament-wise, I think World Approval is a great option. I still think Flintshire is the one to beat, but I think we're going to get a great price here on number one World Approval. Bob, a horse I wanted to ask you about. I think I wanted to include on my pick 4, and now that I got my single out of the way, that's number 6, Ironic, because this horse really loves the Belmont turf course. This is a grade 2 winner, a grade 3 winner, as seen last time out in the Fort Marcy. Granted, it was over a yielding turf course. Jose Ortiz is back aboard. This is a horse that doesn't really find too much trouble. He sits right off the pace. I'm looking last couple races dating back November of 2014. A second, first, first. Horse in top form here. He's only missed the board once in his career. That was his debut. Not on the grass. What do you think about number 6, Ironicus?
With these American turf horses that beat up on each other across the country, whether they go to Gulfstream and one horse wins, and then they go to Keeneland and Ironicus loses to Grand Arch or however it works, he's a competitive U.S. older turf horse that is not even in the same galaxy as Flintshire.
Exactly, and that's why I'm kind of thinking of dangling him out or dangling him in, depending. But I think we got it right on the head here, Bob, with the 1 and the 10.
I completely agree, Andrew, and you couldn't have read the race better, or I couldn't have read the race better, considering how hot you have been recently. So Andrew and I are both in agreement. Flintshire is the horse to beat. If you can afford to go too deep in your pick 4, include World Approval. If you're ahead in your tournaments or you're in the top 5, I suggest you stick with Flintshire and take what I feel like is a free square and move on to the Belmont Stakes. If you need a price, as Andrew mentioned, go with the one-horse World Approval. He's in the best form of his life. So, Andrew, without further ado, it is race 11 on the card. It is the final Triple Crown race of 2016. It is the 1.5-mile marathon. The Belmont Stakes, $1.5 million on the line, a monstrous field for the Belmont Stakes. A field of 13 in the ultra-consistent and recently very good Exaggerator is your 9-5 morning line favorite. I don't even think I need to ask you this question, but I will. Is he the horse to beat?
Off of what he's done as of late, I definitely think this is the horse to beat, 100%. Bob, I was on this horse on Tournament Talk, the Santa Anita Derby, and I said, I've never bet this horse before, but I'm going to start betting him today. I did that day, and he's really turned it on since then. Wasn't for Nyquist. This horse wins the Kentucky Derby as well, and, possible Triple Crown, but obviously not the case here with the scratch of Nyquist. This horse is 100% the horse to beat. Bob, what do you want to look over first? You want to go right into picks? You want to break down some pace?
No, I wanted to ask you about some horses, and feel free to interject and ask me about them as well. I figured we could just go down through the list of some of these horses that caught my attention. Questions to you maybe just about the unknown of what I don't know, or about recently what we've seen out of some of these horses in either Triple Crown races or prep races leading up to the first Saturday in May. Let's start with the horse on the inside rail. I have ultra respect for Christopher Clement. You and I are both NYRA guys. We love the circuit, and he's very successful. He's one of the best in the business. He gets Joel Rosario aboard on Governor Malibu. Didn't win the Peter Pan, lost to what many feel like is a future freak show in Unified. I thought he made a heck of a move there late, and quite frankly, at the 16th pole, I thought he had something for Unified and was going to win that race. This is a big step up in class, but for a guy that's usually pretty conservative for his horses, he must think he's got a shot. Your thoughts about Governor Malibu and the Peter Pan, where he's going to set at from a pace perspective, and you give him any look in here?
Yeah, without a doubt, and Bob, let's just get right to it. This is going to be my pick for the Belmont Stakes. I'm on the Governor Malibu bandwagon. I really like his race in the Peter Pan, and I was on him that day at a big price. Probably would have won a big tournament if he just rallied down Unified. But Unified, like you said, a future freak show. They're very high on that horse there. But it's always been in recent years that Peter Pan's a big prep race for the Belmont Stakes. I know the horse is going to win the race, but if you go back and watch it, he found himself in a little bit of trouble midway through the race. He gets out of that without wasting any horse, and he's still running hard. And then it looks, in the last furlong, like this horse is going to run down Unified. But if you kind of look the head on, he goes in, he goes out, doesn't really know what to do.
Right.
And at the end of the day, he's 3/4 length behind Unified. I think the horse should have won the race. I think this horse should have been the Peter Pan winner. And I think going here, I got Christoph Clement, I got Joe Rosario, who I can trust in a big race like this. I'm getting, great odds. A 94 buyer came back on the Peter Pan. I don't know what you're seeing on the time for and Bobby, but I think Pedigree will let him go. I think he's going to be near the front end. I don't know if he's going to be that lone speed, but I think he'll be right on it. If Gettysburg is in this race for why I think so, I think that betters Governor Malibu's chances. I know he'll be right there, saving ground on the rail. And hopefully, as you know as well as me, that Belmont Stakes, that stretch call, I mean, if this horse is there, I think he has a big shot.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times that stretch call in this race has led to a lot of misery for a lot of us, and thankfully that wasn't the case last year in American Fair's victory. It's kind of funny. The horse I start off with is your pick, but we must move on with more questions. Another horse that I wanted to ask you about that I'm extremely high on and won't be my pick, but I give him a big shot, and that's the horse in the number 2 hole by my guy Todd Pletcher and by our guy Javier Castellano. I thought he ran a deceivingly good race in the Kentucky Derby. Before that, he ran 2 bang-up races at Tampa. Thoroughgraph loved him March 12th. He got, I believe, a -1 or a -2. This horse got a big shot. Pedigree says he can get the distance, and I think he's going to be forwardly placed with the best trainer in the country and the best jockey in possibly the world. Your thoughts on Destin's chances to win the Belmont Stakes?
Yeah, Destin's my my number 2 pick here. I was definitely afraid of this one. Going back, when he won the Sam F. Davis on February 13th, a lot of people didn't really expect that to be the case. There was another big heavy favorite in there. Forgive me, I cannot remember the name at this time. But the way he won it, people were kind of down on the horse. He comes back. He puts a very, very strong Tampa Bay Derby together. It's a 100 buyer. Outwork finishes second in that race. Bob, I know Outwork didn't go on. He won the World Memorial. Didn't run so well in the Kentucky Derby. But you and I are both in agreement that this horse is going to be a big star come the Saratoga meet. So I think there's a lot of good horses in his running lines. Then we get to the Kentucky Derby. A bad start. What are you going to do? Whatever. But like you said, Bob, that 6th place effort is not as bad as it looks. I think, if he was just rallied out of the gate a little bit more, he would have had a better chance. But it's the Kentucky Derby with 20 horses. Either way, I think Destin is to be respected. I'm not leaving him off my pick 4 ticket, and I don't suggest anybody else does.
Certainly not going to be off mine. Todd Pletcher with Scott Hazelton on Thursday morning, TVG. Todd talked about this race specifically, and he said without saying, Andrew, that he feels like if Destin did not get stopped at the gate, leaving the gate rather, and he would have been forwardly placed attacking Nyquist, he said again without saying he thought he'd have a big chance to win that Kentucky Derby. And then he talked about a middle move, and I went back and tried to watch that replay. It's hard with 20 horses, but you could see a horse moving on the outside 4 wide, and lo and behold, it was Destin. He made that exaggerator type move the day that he lost, I believe, to San Vicente or San Felipe, where he made that middle move and then stopped. That's what Destin did that day at the Kentucky Derby. He made that type of move. I think there's tons of talent here. Cherry Wine, the 3 horse. A lot of people like this horse. Timeform US has him 2nd. If this horse runs well, I'm not going to do well at all. I don't want anything to do with this horse. I think he benefited from one of the fastest Preaknesses we've ever seen. A Preakness that broke the record for the fastest first quarter mile. The sloppy conditions fit his skill set, and all he did, in my opinion, was pass a bunch of tired horses, including Nyquist, who I think you and I are both in agreement could have gotten a better ride that day. I want nothing to do with Cherry Wine. I'll be ultra shocked if he finished in the top 3. Your thoughts?
I agree with you. This is a closer. He's going to be coming late, but I don't think he can run down the horses we're going to see today. Like you said, Bob, sloppy track, fast quarters, a lot of reasons why that led up to a 2nd place in the Preakness. But I mean, look at this: 24 lengths. I mean, granted, he did hit the gate and bounced out on the rail in the start of the Preakness, but 24 lengths back, 19 lengths back, going back some more races, 13 lengths back, 12. I'm just not a fan of that. I just can't do it. It's not even in the race.
Sudden breaking news, the 4 horse. I think he ran the 3rd best Kentucky Derby. He just got absolutely stone cold, clotheslined as he made his move for home. He ran better than the 4 3/4 length defeat. He ran 5th that day. But again, Andrew, for me, here's the difference. He had a heck of a pace to run into that day. He's not going to get that pace today. And therefore, I don't like this horse's chances. I'm not saying that he's not better than I thought he was, because he is. But pace makes the race. I don't see pace in here like that, and he is going to come from the absolute clouds along with Cherry Wine. I just don't see it, Andrew. I'm not saying that he doesn't have a future in races if you spot him well, but I just don't see him being a player today.
Yeah, and I agree with you. At first, I thought if anybody was going to close and maybe round out the trifecta, it would be this horse. This is the horse I kind of respected. I don't think the horse can win the race. I don't think the horse can even finish second in the race. Maybe if he's rounding out some superfectas, passing tired horses, like we know that 1.5-mile distance can do to some horses, maybe he's that one, but I don't really see him anything else but 3rd or 4th at the very best. He's got to run a big race for that.
Gettysburg, the 6. He's just the bunny, right? I mean, yep. Asmussen's trying to set it up for Creator, who I don't like either. Let's just get that one out of the way. They're just trying to set it up for the 13 horse, right?
And that's what I said. When I was mentioning Governor Malbu, I said if the 6 is in the race for the reason I think he's in the race, I think that betters my chances. I don't like Gettysburg here. I don't like him leaving the Todd Pletcher barn, where I thought he didn't really do too much, but I thought he had a better future in Pletcher's barn. But, whatever, he's out of there. We've got to move on. But I don't like this horse at all.
Lonnie, I just don't get it. For a week now, I've heard he's working out well. He can go forever. I'm trying to be nice here. I don't know what to say about this horse. Apparently, people are going to bet him. He is not going to sniff 20-1 morning line, which is his morning line right now. I'm hearing he's going to be bet to like 13-1. I find that to be ridiculous. If he wins this race, I'll eat crow. I don't see it.
I don't really see it either. He's not really showing me much in his 2 U.S. starts. Granted, these were 2 Triple Crown races. I just don't know. Maybe Japan racing is different, but, even for horses that are going for the Triple Crown, 3 races in a month is very tough, and the horse hasn't even shown me a slight of improvement throughout the races he's been here in the U.S. I think the Preakness, finishing 5th, only beating 5 lengths, like you said, Bob, just passing tired horses. This is a horse that, if he goes down to 13-1, I hope it's my horse that we're getting an overlay on.
Where do you see him finishing, Andrew? Just for giggles here. Where do you have him? Out of a 13-horse field, where does he finish?
9th. Maybe at the best, running evenly with this group.
I think that'll be about where he's at, and he'll pass horses like Gettysburg and Seeking the Soul that just can't get the 1.5 miles.
Yeah.
Another horse that took a lot of credit, or publicity rather, after his win in the Bluegrass, Brody's Calls, the 12. Another day closer in a race that was the worst of all the preps, of the major preps, in our opinion, the Bluegrass Stakes. Another horse, if he wins, I don't.
I agree with you. Nothing's really been coming out of that Bluegrass Stakes. Wasn't very impressed with it, like we said, Bob. The Kentucky Derby, it's Kentucky Derby. What are you going to do? Some people were high on the horse, but it didn't really live up to the expectations. Another horse I'm just not going to bother using. I don't have him in my top 3. I think the Bluegrass that he won just wasn't quick enough. He came out of the clouds. He got the trip of a lifetime, and I think that's as big as we're ever going to see him run, but not today.
There's one horse that I skipped over. You probably noticed that, and I wanted to save the best for last. And the horse that I think, at the end of the day, is going to win the Belmont Stakes, and that's the 5-horse, Stradivari. Todd Pletcher, Johnny Velasquez, 3rd off the layoff after running what I feel like was the 2nd-best race in the Preakness. From the 11-hole, 6 wide, rank early, dealing with sloppy conditions that he's never dealt with. He certainly exceeded my expectations. I didn't give him a shot to run well here. I thought for the first time in a long time, Todd Pletcher was reaching, showed what little I know, and how dare I question the best trainer I've ever seen. This horse was lights out in that race, Andrew. If he gets a better post draw, if he's not chasing that hot speed that shouldn't have been hot to begin with, who knows where this horse would have finished. He's 5-1 in second choice for a reason, and here's how I see the race playing out. Gettysburg goes to the front end to set it up for the closers, specifically creator is Steve Asmussen's game plan. I think Destin and Stradivari set off the cheap speed and let Gettysburg come back to him. I think we all are in agreement that's going to happen. I think Destin and Stradivari will turn for home first and second, and those two are going to battle it out for the win. I don't see a lot of pace in here. I think they're the two best horses in the race, considering what the pace tells me it's going to be. These horses are going to battle it out. I think Todd Pletcher runs first and second in the Belmont Stakes with Stradivari getting the victory and supplanting himself as a very good 3-year-old with a very bright future. You know how high I was on Outwork. I'm even higher on Stradivari after I saw that race in the Preakness. I think this horse wins the Belmont Stakes, and I think it caps off what could possibly be a monster day for Todd Pletcher. Stradivari, the 5-horse, 5-1. I think he's your winner.
You know, that's who rounded it out for me, Bob. You know, between him, Destin, and Governor Malibu, you know, Stradivari 100%. I mean, was my pick until yesterday, until I went back into form today. So, Bob, you know, I'm in agreement with everything you said. That allowance race, not winner of one for the year, Keeneland race, just ultra impressive. You know, whoever was in the race, sure, you want to knock him on that, whatever. But I think the horse was ultra game. The Preakness, it looked like he had a chance to come and rally down the stretch. He was 6 wide. That didn't really help him that much. But, I mean, this horse is definitely to be respected. If the pace sets up the exact way we're seeing it, Stradivari has a big chance here.
The only way that I'm completely wrong about this is if Exaggerator can be a lot closer to the lead. Now, I listened to Kent today talking to a couple of guys on TV, and he said he felt like that he could get Exaggerator closer to the lead than what we've seen. But I'm of the mindset of why are you going to try to fix something that hasn't been broken? This horse has proven that he runs his best races when they make that one run. And I'll tell you what, on the dirt, when it comes to turn of foot, I'm not saying he's a Fleet Alex, but it looks similar to that in certain occasions. I just don't see why they would play with fire there and try to put this horse close to the lead. I just think Exaggerator is going to be so far out of it, he's not going to have enough time to get to the 2 and the 5. If he's closer to the lead, it's all out the window. Exaggerator wins the race. I just don't think he can be that close and we still see the same turn of foot, which is why I'm completely playing against the 11 in this certain circumstance. Your thoughts on my mindset there?
No, and I agree with you 100%. You know, the 11s, it's granted for his matter, it doesn't matter because he's going to be so far back anyway. But, you know, I'm just not convinced this horse can really win big races such as this over a fast track, which we intend to see on Saturday. I know there's been some speculation about rain in the forecast for Saturday. I think a little drizzle doesn't make any difference for this horse. I think a downpour makes a big difference for this horse. And if this is a soupy, muddy track, I don't think the horse loses the race. But I'm handicapping this race as if it was a fast track, and I have to go by that knowledge. I don't think the horse is going to run races like we see. You know, you know, sloppy track. This horse is an absolute monster. But look at it. Look at some of his fast dirt races. The horse is really struggling to get up there. To be forwardly placed, like you said, Bob, why fix what's not broken? I'm not sure about that. This horse is one of the best closers we've seen all year. You know, and probably we'll see for the next year or so, maybe the summer. But I don't think there's a need to be any closer. So I'm a little confused as to why they want to switch some game plan up here. But I think he can really be beat on a fast track.
If Governor Malibu were to win this race, where do you see Christopher going with him next?
That's a good question. I mean, you know, I would
because
sure
certainly he would prove that he belongs in this realm of horse racing. So, do you think it would then be the Travers? Would that be the obvious choice at that point?
100%. You know, maybe the Travers is the next race. I don't know if they're going to prep them elsewhere. You know, somewhere else. I mean, totally different circumstance. American Pharoah goes to the Haskell, whether that was for the fans, as the Zayats say, whatever it may be. But I think the Travers would definitely be in the near future plans for Clement if this horse wins.
If I'm right and Stradivari wins, what would be your take on that horse at that point, and where do you see the limit being for Stradivari.
I would think the sky's the limit after what we've seen in his wins and even what he showed in the fourth place effort in the Preakness. I think this would obviously be Pletcher's top horse of the summer. And I mean, he's got a lot of good horses for the summer, but I think this horse would do excellent this summer should he come back and win the Belmont Stakes.
Great show, Andrew. Love your perspective, and certainly am going to include Governor Malibu in everything I do at this point, simply because of what you said. So Andrew likes the one horse, Governor Malibu, at 12-1 in the Belmont Stakes. I'm on the second choice, Todd Pletcher, Johnny Velasquez, Stradivari at 5-1. That'll do it for the Belmont Stakes edition of Tournament Talk on the Tournament Edge. As always, Andrew and I hope we found you a lot of winners. Until next week, that's Andrew Calvano. I'm Bobby Shoemaker. And as always, good luck.
Good luck, guys.